Welcome back, movie buffs, to another episode of Podio Commentary. Today we're diving into the latest MCU blockbuster, Deadpool and Wolverine. We'll be exploring the film's development, production, and of course, the dynamic performances by Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. We'll also take a look at how the movie was made, its box office performance, and of course, its critical reception. Get ready for one hell of an in-depth discussion. All of that and more here today on Podio Commentary. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Podio Commentary. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new movie Deadpool and Wolverine. Normally with the show, I like to cover older films. I don't necessarily like to do these kind of dives into a movie that just came out, as not everyone has seen it yet. And of course, not everyone has settled on their thoughts on the film, but this is the biggest movie of the year. This was an amazing movie to watch in theaters. It was the first movie I went back to see in theaters in approximately 8 months from when I saw Godzilla Minus One. So it was a big deal for me to watch this movie in theaters, to watch it with a crowd, and I'm glad that I did. But man, if there's going to be any movie that could potentially have any major impact on pushing people away from going to the theaters, it is how places like Regal have absolutely screwed the pooch when it comes to their pricing structure for this movie. It's all over the board. I want to start off by talking about that. Okay, for one, there will be spoilers. Obviously, this is Podio Commentary. If you like what I do and you want more of it, you guys can find me on social media. You guys can find me at Hwad Podcast on Twitter. HWAD Podcast is part of the Hollywood After Dark Network. And I'm over there going to be talking about it, obviously. There's a Discord link will be in the video description here on YouTube. And I also just look forward to you guys' comments and everything else. But look, this movie suffers from the same problem that a lot of other movies do. And that is just they are big tentpole movies, big end of summer blockbuster extravaganzas. And the biggest issue is that movie theaters are they know people are going to go see it. So they use this as a time to usher in higher prices and to really just start to squeeze the working class. This is a working man's art form. And unfortunately, it's getting to the point now where it is so utterly ridiculous in regards to pricing. It's at my local Regal right now, a standard 2D showing of the movie, $19.49. Standard 2D. You want IMAX? You're looking at around $25 for 1 2-hour, 7-minute experience. The juice ain't worth the squeeze. I'm sorry, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Not by a damn long shot. And that is the biggest problem that we're having with this whole thing right now. Movie theaters are hurting. This is not helping them. Yeah, there's going to be FOMO for a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, but at the same time, it's come on, you guys. Just come on. You are literally trying to squeeze blood from a stone, and it's just eventually not going to yield any results, and that's only going to hurt, movies, and that part sucks. But I'm not here to complain about movie theaters. I'm here to talk about an awesome film, a movie that I really, really, really liked, and that it checked all the boxes for me in a way that I knew it would. I had no issue, no doubt in my mind. I did feel that in some ways that the movie was over marketing itself, over hyping itself, but I was thankfully very able to go in without having any of the spoilers ruined for me, any of the big reveals and secret guest appearances and things like that. So again, like I said, this is going to have spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, go see it, come back and finish the video. So Deadpool and Wolverine, of course, is the third in the trilogy. It was written by a lot of people. The first two movies were written by Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese, who did come back to help out with the rewrites on this one. And they did get writing credit, but so did Sean Levy, Ryan Reynolds, and Zeb Wells, which I thought was really interesting that you had 5 names listed on the screenplay, which almost seems kind of unheard of. And in many ways, with some of this movie, at least at times, it can feel like there's just too many cooks in the kitchen for trying to get some of the jokes to land. It's not that the jokes didn't land, it's that you could maybe see that there was some tonal inconsistencies every once in a while. I am glad that Wernick and Rhett Reese did come back to work on this. For a while there, it was actually going to be written by the sisters who work on Bob's Burgers, Wendy and Lizzie Molyneux. They were going to write the movie, and then they didn't go anywhere with it. And from there, it just kind of petered for a while. And then, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick came back in 2022 to really kind of help solidify this thing. What was good about Sean Levy being brought in is that he has worked with Ryan Reynolds a number of times. Obviously, they did, The Free Guy, they did The Adam Project, and I really, really liked both movies for different reasons. This movie feels like a culmination of the two, right? Of the slapstick, over-the-top nature of Free Guy and the very heartwarming story that was in The Adam Project. And it shows you a range of emotions that Ryan Reynolds can accomplish when acting. Here, he kind of had to juggle everything quite a bit. He very much was trying to do the Deadpool, highly sarcastic, Merc with the mouth type stuff, while also trying to then grapple with how he feels about, the potentiality of losing his timeline, losing his family. And that's why, I think Levy was a good director to really kind of balance out all of those different emotions and give us a really solid performance. I don't know if I would say that it's Ryan Reynolds' best performance as Deadpool. I feel like Tim Miller did a better job with Ryan on the first Deadpool movie. But then again, that's just me, and not everyone's going to feel the way I do about that 100%. But still, it's like, okay, you've got, a character who is beloved, an actor who is beloved for playing that character. The same goes for Wolverine. You need to have a good director to be able to kind of juggle all that to make it work and to have its emotional core, especially coming off of Logan, right? Especially with that ending 7 years ago that brought grown-ass men to tears. That was a big issue. And in this movie, they definitely were able to work on that one, right? So going in to look at how the film came together, they definitely were planning on doing Deadpool 3 following the release of Deadpool 2 in 2018. But then during that time, the Disney acquisition of Fox happened and everything just kind of went up in the air. There was a lot of thoughts, a lot of theories about whether or not Deadpool was going to be PG-13, whether it was going to happen at all, whether Disney would allow itself to be tied to something as vulgar and crass and violent as Deadpool, especially given the fact that Endgame in 2019 had become the highest grossing film of all time for a hot ass minute before, Avatar retook it. So it was a lot going back and forth. And, I think they were trying to figure it out, figure out the tone, figure everything out. And of course, Feige coming off of the biggest event in movie pop culture history was probably feeling a little bit high on himself, I can do all this. And then after that, though, we saw all of the stretching of Kevin Feige between the different movies and the TV shows and the one-offs and the comics and everything else they wanted him to do. You could start to see that he was stretched a little bit thin, which is one of the reasons why I feel giving this movie over to Ryan Reynolds in maximum effort to be able to kind of largely oversee the production, to work with Feige, because they all know Feige, they all love Feige. But Feige kind of, you could tell, was more hands off on this one in a way that worked because he trusted the creative team, and they were also coming in from two previously very successful films and having very much been able to do their own thing. So it was, around this time when they weren't able to figure out what they wanted to do with it, that they finally got around to doing, hey, Wolverine 2022, we got that announcement. Oh my God, he's back. He's back. He's with Deadpool. This is what everybody wanted. And this ended up being a big thing. They brought everybody back, basically, with the exception of TJ Miller, which I get why, because the whole thing with TJ Miller and the bomb threat are calling in not a fake threat. Basically, what TJ Miller did back in 2018 was he was drunk off his ass on a train, and there was a woman that he was beefing with. And so he effectively contacted the authorities and made the accusation that she may or may not have an explosive device. And this is, if I recall this correctly. And that ultimately kind of tanked TJ Miller's film career for a while. He's still doing stand-up and he's still doing okay, but like he wasn't even mentioned in like the press tour of Deadpool 2. He wasn't involved in any of that. He's not involved in this one. Ryan Reynolds has very much walked away from him. I thought that they were friends. I mean, a big part of it too in Hollywood, it's about who you know. And if you know someone who's got kind of a scarlet letter on their chest, you're going to avoid the hell out of them. It's very true. You know, so they went through and they started shooting this movie in May 2023 at Pinewood Studios in England, while also filming in Norfolk and Bovingdon Film Studios. But they did run into a pretty significant problem due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strikes, which led to a temporary halt of filming in July of 2023. And then, of course, it resumed in November of last year and concluded in January of this year. So it's like, while the movie was on hiatus, Sean Levy was definitely editing the movie because the DGA had already signed their deal. So he was definitely editing the movie and getting the visual effects ready to go. And then they were just plotting out how to get it back up and running as soon as the strikes ended. Now, look, I know actors and writers and producers will all say, you know, oh, as soon as it was over, we weren't doing any business. We were on strike. We were, you know, whatever. I don't believe a word of that for a second. There's wheelins and dealins happening that aren't going to be related to people actually being on set. But there was definitely work that was being done. You could tell, I'm sorry, I'm just going to be honest here. Writers were writing, and they were writing stuff that they were probably already working on, but they just couldn't admit it or announce it or talk about it or make any money on it because, well, there was the strike that was happening. But of course, when the strike is over, everybody's going to want to get back to work as fast as humanly possible. So all this stuff is already going to be magically completed or magically worked on. And it's going to be done. It's largely just, it was mostly just for show, to be fair. I'm sorry. But they got the movie done, started the promotional tour a few weeks ago, actually, and used Ryan Reynolds' social media presence to really kind of push the marketing on this movie. According to this, Disney spent approximately $100 million. $100 million marketing this movie and collaborating with various brands and leveraging Ryan Reynolds as best as they could. And it worked out quite well. Quite well. But then Disney spent maybe $100 million on marketing. But think about all the licensing that they were able to then get paid for from the companies that wanted to buy the license. So again, we always talk about like the movies in regards to their marketing and the movies in regards to like how much that budget is, but we never talk about how much money they make ancillarily. And that's something just to consider. So the movie premiered just last week at the David H. Koch Theater in New York City, and it hit markets on July 26, 2024. I mean, it definitely came out a little early overseas, and some of the spoilers were happening there. And so a lot of people like myself got to go watch the movie. And of course, let's talk about the movie. Okay, this isn't Podio Commentary without describing the film. Let me just start off by saying, man, did I like this movie. I was really concerned. I was really super concerned with how they were going to honor Logan's legacy and bring him back in a way that did not feel like he was, kind of shitting on it, right? Because that's a tough one. Like I said, Logan's ending was so good. That sacrifice was so profound that it really felt like it was closing the door on that character, and with good reason. Right? He'd been playing the role for 17 years. Now he's been playing the role for 24 years. It's crazy. But the fact that this movie starts off and he is digging up the grave of Logan and then pulls out the skeleton and then uses it to beat the shit out of the TVA, all while playing Bye 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 by NSYNC and then him dance. The opening credits of this movie are wild. The opening credits of this movie are like, yeah. You know how we thought we were going to be all nice and somber and kind and everything else, and we were just going to treat it with respect? Fuck that. It went out the damn window. And it was so brazen and it was so over the top and so ridiculous that whatever emotions you might have been thinking completely went away when you have the opening credit scene and it's literally like the skull of Logan with the name Hugh Jackman on it, bashing some TVA agent's face in. You know what I mean? Like all of that stuff was going on, and it was just like it was just crazy because you don't know. Like you're like, oh my god, like this, and it went on for a while. Like the opening credits went on for a damn while. It wasn't like it was anything. Like it was really felt long. It felt long and it felt very over the top and very violent. And like Deadpool's like, oh, I can't use my katanas to fight these guys, so I'm gonna use the bones of a dead Logan that are grafted with adamantium, so they're gonna be basically indestructible, and they're just gonna brutalize all these guys. And it was funny. But then it gets a little bit weird. Here's where I feel like some of the plot doesn't make a lot of sense, okay? Because they don't really like explain this. So we know that Wade Wilson from the Fox movies is on Earth 10005. Okay, and then he uses Cable's time traveling device to head to Earth 616, the sacred timeline, where he goes to Avengers Tower. This is in 2018, right? So this is before the events of Endgame. Or of Infinity War, like right before the events of Infinity War. And what appears to maybe also be like before the events of even maybe Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know. It depends on where Happy Hogan is. Is he at Avengers Campus in upstate New York? Or is he at Avengers Tower in New York City? That's not established. It's probably the campus, to be fair. And that scene with Jon Favreau is pretty great. But it also seems kind of weird. It's like, okay, so Deadpool wants to join the Avengers. He gets rejected. Then it goes 6 years later. Now he's back in timeline, Earth 1005 or 0005. And he's a used car salesman. And he hates his life. It's his birthday. Everyone is there. Him and Vanessa have obviously broken up. Again, right? Because it's like these heroes can never really be happy. In Deadpool 1, she got captured, whatever with her because he was upset at how he looked, and then they get together and in Deadpool 2, she's killed, right? So she's fridged according to that terminology. He brings her back from the dead. Great. They're together, but they break up because of, it's like this idea that like same with Indiana Jones and Ravenwood in Dial of Destiny, they broke up, even though they were married at the end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Luke Skywalker is all kind of broken and upset. It's like, why are these heroes always just in a position of being in a place of struggle? And that is a commentary that gets brought up from a lot of like what you would call chud channels. My theory for that is they need a catalyst to put the hero on a hero's journey. And that is a problem that happens with a lot of these heroes. But I feel like Iron Man was maybe one that never did that. Spider-Man's one that's never really done that. Well, Spider-Man 2 kind of did that, right? Spider-Man 2 took away Tobey's powers for like half the movie because he had depression, which is a real thing. And I think it was an interesting way of looking at depression. But again, that happens, right? They need something to bring the hero to their lowest moment in order for them to rise from the ashes like a glorious phoenix, defeat the bad guy, save the girl or the boy, win the day, whatever, right? It is a trope. And these movies all follow the same tropes. We have to remember that. It is just unfortunate, but that's what they did with that, right? So then he ends up getting grabbed by the TVA, and they want to destroy Earth 10005 because their anchor being had died, this being Logan. So the Fox's universe is Earth 1005, 0005. And so that's kind of the whole point, right? They need an anchor being, and they're going to destroy it, and he's going to be chosen to be kind of they never really explain what it was that Deadpool was going to be doing with the TVA, right? With Paradox or Mr. Paradox. They never really explain what he was going to be doing. Like he offers him, I guess, a place on Earth 616 to like work with the TVA, but it wasn't going to be putting him in the Avengers. And the TVA operates outside of that whole realm, so they wouldn't be in Earth 616. That part was a little bit confusing, right? It was like, okay, we need you to come work with us because your timeline's going to be over. And you could come and do other things, which would probably be work with the Avengers, I guess. But then, of course, it's like, hey, I can either do what I want. Like, I can get the dream I want, work with Captain America, work with Hulk, work with Thor, work with all these people. Or I can watch my friends and family die. And since this movie is about heart and doing the right thing, ultimately that's what they do, you know? So he opts to go and find a Wolverine to replace the anchor being, and goes through, quite frankly, a glorious cameo. The Calverine, the fact that they got Henry Cavill to do a guest appearance in this movie, that's like the cameo. Everything else in this movie isn't even really a cameo, because quite frankly, like they have parts in the film, right? There's whole things there. But the Cavill one was great, especially the whole thing where, you know, Deadpool's like, yeah, the way those guys treated you down the street, or those guys down the street treated you, was like not cool. And it was like really funny. And this was filmed after Black Adam. This was filmed after the cameo scenes were shot for Black Adam and The Flash, after the restructuring and reorganization of DC Studios. I mean, everything. Henry Cavill coming on in and doing that is really funny, because it's very meta. It's very self-aware. And like, man, Snyder Bros were like totally seething. It was pretty funny. But after, you know, they find the Logan, the worst Logan, the world's worst Logan, which makes like no sense. When you find out why he's the world's worst Logan, because he got upset that a whole bunch of villagers with torches and pitchforks went to the to Xavier's school and slaughtered everybody. And then he got mad, and because he was drunk and he was upset and he was furious, and he went into like berserker mode and he just slaughtered everybody, including, I'm assuming, women, children, innocents, things like that. He's a psychotic, murderous Wolverine that then has immense guilt because he wasn't able to save his friends. I don't even think he's really upset that he killed innocent people. I think he's really upset that his friends are dead. And that's why he wears the suit. He wears the suit because that's like his punishment. That's like his, you know, that's his penance, so to speak. And I thought that was interesting, but it also was just kind of a way to get him in the suit, to get him in the yellow suit, because he never wanted to wear it. Scott always wanted him to wear it, which I don't believe Scott would. If it's the Scott from the X-Men movies, I don't think Scott would care, to be honest with you. But it was a nice little reference, mostly probably back to the, you know, to the animated series or whatever. And so that's how they get him in the suit. And then of course from there they end up getting transferred to the Void, which is the same place that Loki happened in, right? The final part of season 1 of Loki. And it was great to have that all tied in. We all knew that was going to be there from the trailers anyway, seeing like the 20th Century Fox logo, seeing the gigantic Ant-Man skeleton, seeing like all the little tidbits that we saw. But what was great about this is it literally just turned into all the characters from different universes that were deemed as, you know, non-team players, right? Were all sent to the Void, where they end up working for Cassandra Nova, who is Charles Xavier's twin sister, who attempted to strangle him in the uterus, but was then sent to the Void as an infant for her own protection, but yet still somehow was able to work a deal, I think, with everything. I don't quite know. It's weird to me that she was there the whole time. She was an infant. How would she eat? How would she live? You know, there's questions I have for the plot. But what was really great about this was when we get the first, I don't want to call it a cameo, but the first guest appearance. And of course, you know, it's Chris Evans, right? And they set it up like it's Captain America. And I thought this was fantastic because they set it up like it's Captain America. He's got kind of the voice, right? The demeanor, but he doesn't have the hair. So I'm watching this, right? And this is where I completely didn't even think about Johnny Storm. But I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, I see they got Chris Evans back, but he didn't want to shave his beard or dye his hair. Okay, fine. Whatever. It's Cap. It's Cap. It's Cap. I'm okay. And then like all of a sudden, you know, he goes, flame on. And I'm like, oh shit. Like I totally wasn't even thinking about Johnny Storm. And it threw me for such a loop that I was laughing about that. I was loving it. And then of course, you know, all the stuff there, like with, you know, them getting captured, but then there's Pyro. And it's great to see Pyro again. And, you know, like, okay, great. Like, you know, it just, was it Tyler Mane is Sabretooth? And of course he died pretty quickly. So he was only on set for like 20 minutes. It was really funny. Like it was just this idea that they're in this weird kind of battle world scenario where life or death is on the menu all the time. because when they get to Cassandra Nova's lair and Deadpool starts saying that Johnny Storm said all of these things about her, and then she just, the thing is, she kills Johnny. Johnny's trying to go like, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. And then at the end of the movie, in the end credits, the post-credit scene, you find out that it actually was him. I think Cassandra knew because she's probably a telepath, just like Charles Xavier. So we see her have to go into someone's mind with her hands to be able to do it. But I'm pretty sure she has a decent bullshit meter. So her skinning him and letting his bones and organs plop on the ground was definitely unexpected. Well, I was like, oh my God. And what I love about them getting away from there is this is where they go and they meet Nice Pool. And Nice Pool being just like the douchiest version of Deadpool, but with like the dog pool, the ugliest dog on the planet. And, and it's just, then of course we get like the whole fight scene between Logan and Deadpool. And that kind of had to happen, to be honest with you, because those guys, like, they kind of fought a little bit, but then this was the emotional fight. This was like the fight to like, to kind of break the tension, the fight to kind of break, I guess you could call it like, there's like, this is an emotional break that needed to happen for both of them to just get it out of their system. And then, of course, they're discovered by a mysterious person, a mysterious woman, who then takes them to a cave where they encounter freaking, like Elektra and fucking, Wesley, like, Jesus Christ, Blade and Gambit. I mean, the fact that they got, I had a feeling we were going to see Channing Tatum as Gambit in this movie. I had a feeling we were going to see him. I didn't think we were going to get as much of him as we did, but looking at it now and listening to him try to do like the Louisianan, the Bayou accent, it wouldn't have worked. Okay. I'm glad he did it. I'm glad we got to see it. I'm glad I get to watch it multiple times over now till the end of time, but it wouldn't have worked as a movie. I don't think, right. It just, maybe it was a dialogue, maybe he was just doing it so over the top for humor, because there's a line in there about Deadpool, like, where's your dialect? Like, who was your dialect coach? And so on and so forth. Like, they made jokes about that, but I also enjoyed that they had X-23 was there, and that's the team. You find out that like that Daredevil had gone up against Cassandra Nova and he had died. And then, like, oh, Deadpool or Daredevil. And then it cuts to Elektra. She's like, yeah. Right. Like, and that was a little bit of a gag, a little bit of a thing about Ben Affleck and Daredevil. They were married, obviously. So whatever else, and I thought that was like really, I thought that was great. Because, the referencing other characters, the Punisher was there, right? Obviously that was Lionsgate. The 2004, 2008 Punisher was Lionsgate, but we don't know. Was it Dolph Lundgren Punisher? Was it Ray Stevenson? Unfortunately not, because he passed away. Although they did film this, I think, before he passed away. Or was it, was it John Bernthal? Was it Tom Jane? We don't know who it was, but the fact that they mentioned the Punisher in an MCU movie gives me hope that we're going to get more Punisher. But Frank Castle dying like that, I mean, I could see it happening because he's kind of he's a psycho. But I would have loved to have seen it. Right. What I enjoy is that they were all like, all right, now we need to go and like fight Cassandra Nova and like save the world sort of thing. Because all these guys know that they're stuck there and that they're eventually going to die, but they want a good ending. And I think that speaks to like the whole Fox universe that this is saying goodbye to. I mean, sure, like, Wesley Snipes' Blade is New Line, right? The Punisher would not have been Disney outside of Bernthal. But still, it's like, Daredevil was also Fox and everything else. And it's just like, it's saying goodbye to an era, and they want a good ending, right? They want a good ending. They want to go out on top. They want to go out fighting. And you could feel the emotion in that scene. And maybe it was the subtext of it that got me, but you could really feel the emotion in that scene. And I really, really, really liked it. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's fucking go. Like, LFG, let's do it. Let's go, baby. And then, of course, Wolverine's like, F this, I'm not going to do it. Because there's always a holdout in these things. There's always a holdout character. But he needed to have that conversation with Laura about her Logan and like him saving the day, because Logan, this Wolverine, hates himself for failing everybody. And she was like, you didn't fail. You were the one that stood up. You saved so many lives. And he's like, I'm the wrong guy. And she's like, you were always the wrong guy until you weren't. And what I enjoy about that is what led into the next scene. Obviously, we get the big fight scene. We get the big fight scene. They're driving the Honda Odyssey. Blade is up top out of the sunroof holding a bazooka, and they're like, oh, where'd you get that weaponry from? Oh, the Punisher. And then Blade's like, well, there's only been one Blade and there only will ever will be, or whatever the line is, and then it cuts to Deadpool and he's like, I don't know, man, But here's the thing with that though, right? So like they make that joke, and this joke comes 5 years after the announcement of Mahershala Ali as the new Blade, a movie that is completely going through production hell. It's now going to be rated R. They've now got new people working on it. It's weird to me that this is where they are with this. But the thing is, though, is that like at Comic-Con yesterday when they announced that Robert Downey Jr. was playing Doctor Doom, that's a whole other freaking thing. But when that happened, they never mentioned anything about Blade. And that would have been the weekend to do it, because everyone would have been looking at that like, well, you made a joke about Blade in a movie that just came out the other day. You now have a chance to be entirely meta and give us more information on that, and they simply didn't. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I mean, I love the line. I love the gag. I also love seeing Wesley Snipes back as Blade. So what's great, though, is it feels like Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds maybe buried the hatchet from Blade 3, Blade Trinity, because even in that movie, Hannibal King was essentially a Wade Wilson-esque kind of character, and so you could, at least they were able to come back together. I know Patton Oswalt and Wesley Snipes will probably never see eye to eye on anything, and that's okay. But that's largely because Patton's pretty short. I kid. But in this case, it was really good to see everybody. And then they bust on in, and then they kind of do the hero pose, and out comes Wolverine, and, it's game on. And you get to see like there's Juggernaut. There's like, was it Azrael? There's, a few other guys, like Juggernaut wasn't Vinnie Jones. It would have been awesome if it was Vinnie Jones. They didn't make the line. They should have said, don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. They should have done that. They should have done that. Maybe they looked back at that from 2006 and they thought that's too much. But yet this movie almost feels in some ways written by a Redditor, and it has a lot of meme humor. And that was one of the very first times a meme ended up in a major motion picture. And everyone loved it back in 2006, 18 years ago. So I don't know why it wasn't there, but whatever. I digress. I'm nitpicking. I'll fully admit that. And then they're battling it all out, and they're having, a great old time. And then, of course, Deadpool is going to go up and confront Cassandra. And then you've got, Laura is going after Juggernaut, and she takes his head off to get the helmet. But they put it on Cassandra. Because Cassandra's talking with, this is an interesting thing. When we learn about the Wolverine story, right? We learn about Wolverine and how, he had failed. And then she's offering him a place, and she's offering him happiness and forgiveness and to be free and all of these things that he wants. But like I said, he's wearing that suit like it's penance, like it's punishment, but it's also armor. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting way of looking at it. But what I loved was he did that on purpose, using his pain in order to put her in a position of vulnerability for Deadpool to put Juggernaut's helmet on her. And it worked. And then from there, Pyro shows up and he, shoots her a couple times and everything. And then, this is where Wolverine has got a change of heart. And he's like, I can't let you die. Charles wouldn't like that. I want to be the man Charles believed I could be. And that may not go over with a lot of people. I think like younger people who may not have like spent the last 24 years watching this. I remember the summer of 2000 watching X-Men so many freaking times at my local drive-in, and buying the movie on DVD that fall and watching it again multiple times and everything. Patrick Stewart as Professor X was very much the leader of that whole team. He was the wisdom. Logan was always kind of the heart. He really was. And for him to want to be the way Charles knew he could be, what Charles believed he could be, is what we spent so much time with in these movies. and always wanting, their dynamic was wonderful. And then in that moment when he tells Deadpool take off the helmet and everything else, it was done out of love and respect for his friend. And of course, she goes, okay, fine, you guys saved me. Here, let me show you this little trinket I found on a wizard after I wore his skin around for 3 days. And of course, it's a sling ring. We saw the sling ring in the trailer, so I thought Doctor Strange would make an appearance, but no, she has a sling ring. Don't know how she knows how to use it, but whatever. Off they go, back to, Earth 10005 in order to stop the Time Ripper from destroying that universe that's just so conveniently underneath underneath the subway. Okay, fine. This was obviously leading into like the best part of the film, which was when, Cassandra Nova's like, well, I'm just going to destroy everything. I didn't know the sling ring gets me out of here. The TVA didn't honor their agreement. So I'm just going to destroy everything and make everything like just the only timeline, the void. So she wants the Time Ripper. She goes out there, but then she brings all the other Deadpools. Because she made a comment, Deadpools are a dime a dozen. And they are. There were so many different Deadpools. Of course, everyone was curious, who's Lady Pool? Who's Lady Pool? I think, look, there was two people that were on the list. One was Taylor Swift. The other was Blake Lively. Taylor Swift would have been a tough one to get. I don't think it would have stayed a secret. But then, like, there's an image of Blake Lively visiting Ryan Reynolds on set in London. And I'm like, that's her. Lady Pool is definitely Blake Lively. Turns out, I was right. And so they get into this epic fight scene, and it's a really epic fight scene. But what was really funny about that was beforehand, Nice Pool shows up, and he ends up getting shot, and he doesn't have regenerative abilities. We should have known that because his face wasn't scarred. His face wasn't disfigured. He didn't have that disfigurement in order to activate his healing ability. And so that was kind of a funny little gag. Never mind the fourth wall break that he had, where he simply just says, proposal, which was really funny. And then they get into this epic fight scene. And it's such a good fight scene. It's so violent. It's so bloody. They murk so many Deadpools and everything. And then at the end, everyone just like regenerates because they've all gone through the process. And that was nice. And then Pete shows up and they're like, Pete, because that's like the one through line with everybody, I guess. But then Pete, like, he basically becomes like the Deus Ex Machina of the whole situation, which is kind of weird. And then they all run down and, and they're going to like, Paradox says, the only way to stop it is you have to connect the matter and the antimatter together. And that's going to eviscerate and destroy whoever does it. Like they're just going to vaporize basically. And of course you have the whole like hero sacrifice. Logan's like, I got nothing to live for. Let me do it. And then Deadpool agrees, but then double crosses because Deadpool wants to be the one to that's what he feels he has to do. And then of course, Wolverine breaks in, standard, look, the tropey, it's tropey. Okay. They combine hands. They each reach out for the matter and antimatter. And as a result of it being two of them, both with very, very, very massive, regenerative abilities, they were able to survive the destruction of the Time Ripper and ultimately the destruction of Cassandra Nova. And then from there, it ends up anchoring Wolverine to that universe. So then that universe ends up kind of healing itself by having a new anchor. But this is where it gets weird because the rules of Earth 616 and 838 from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness indicated that that there is no way that Strange and Rachel McAdams could be together because they were from different universes and it wouldn't last. But somehow they were able to anchor being Wolverine to this universe. It's a bit of a leap of logic considering what happened a couple years ago. I would love there to be an explanation for this. I honestly would love an explanation, but largely it's just going to be like, shut the fuck up. It's a movie. You know what I'm saying? And that's a fine explanation. I'm willing to let that go. Okay. I'm willing to let that go, but I also want Doctor Strange to be happy. Okay. So that's where I'm coming from. That's all where I'm coming from on this one is I want Strange to be happy. Obviously that's not the case here. So of course, at this point in time, B-15 from Loki shows up and gives all the expository information about how they saved the universe. And then they say, okay, well, Logan can stay there. Okay, great. Also, can you go and save everybody else? Okay, cool. And then that's about it, right? That's really about it. And Logan invites Wolverine back to his place to hang out with Al. Everyone shows up. They have a party. Laura's there because I guess she's been anchored now to that world. But is there already a Laura that's there? Who knows? Again, it doesn't matter. Happy ending. Everyone gets their happy ending. Wade gets the dog, and at the end, sits next to Vanessa, and he says, "I did it all for you." And just like, I love you. And that's what this is. That's what this movie is the I love you. It's a love letter to what came before it. It's a love letter to everything that came before. 24 years. Even though we haven't had a movie from the Fox stuff since 2019. And X-Men Dark Phoenix wasn't a great film, but at the end of that movie, I felt sadness. I felt grief because I would never see these characters again. And to see some of this stuff come back and with a nice love letter, especially the end credit sequence. Time of Our Lives by Green Day plays to this montage of behind the scenes from all the movies from over the span of the 24 years. It brought a smile to my face, brought a tear to my eye. And then, of course, the end credit sequence was great as well. So, or the post credit sequence was great. So yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine, man, is a wonderful movie. I really, really, really loved it. I mean, obviously critics did as well. It's doing pretty good critically. Right now, it's got a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, an average rating of 7.1 out of 10. Metacritic gave it a 56, but those guys are a bunch of pissy ass bitches. The audience score from Cinema Score gave it an A. Post Track gave it a 96%. And the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is also very high. The budget of the movie was around $200 million. So far in the first couple days, the opening weekend, it's estimated to have grossed $205 million. And internationally in the first couple of days, it's pulled in $438 million, decimating box office records across the world. This is easily going to be a $1.5 to $2 billion movie. I mean, that's a bit maybe on the high side, but it will definitely cross $1 billion. At the end of the day, I think Deadpool and Wolverine is just a great time at the cinema. I'm looking forward to watching it again multiple times, seeing what I missed, and just enjoying, again, that love letter that I was waiting for, that I was wanting, and that I got, and it checked all the boxes, and I'm very happy that it exists. And as always, I'm curious, your thoughts, your opinions. Let me know down in the comment section. We'll definitely be doing a live stream spoiler discussion about this in a couple days, so keep an eye on that here on the channel. If you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, thank you guys. Please leave a review, and I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great week. Go watch a movie. Go watch Deadpool. Go watch it again. And my name is Matt Jarbo. Have a great one, everybody, and peace out.